All right. Yeah. Hey, everybody to make it and also who could not make it. We'll be sharing this info session afterwards as well. Quickly to the agenda of today. We're gonna do a quick welcome and introduction. I'll be explaining a bit about what GlassDollar is and what we also, I also do within GlassDollar. Then we're going to talk about venture clienting. I know some of you, so I know that some of you already know what venture clienting is. Others might not. So we're gonna touch upon the topic itself. Then the third part will be a walk through the masterclass, specifically focusing about what we'll do and what you'll learn there, and how this can help you set up your venture clienting unit within your organization, but also learn the skills that it takes to really run successful POCs. Quick note here, whenever we talk about POCs, it's a proof of concept, meaning a startup corporate collaboration to test startup or innovative solutions. Yeah, and we'll go into that later. And then the last part will be a Q&A and next steps. So whenever you guys also in between have questions, please feel free to reach out. We don't just want to make this a one-way me talking the entire time, but if you guys have questions, please interrupt me. Most importantly, really, this is just an info session for you to understand if this masterclass is valuable to you, if it's relevant for you, and if you have questions afterwards about that, you can also reach out to any of us. Quickly to who we are as GlassDollar. GlassDollar is also a startup itself, founded 2019, and what we do is we offer venture clienting services, which means we help corporations run startup projects and understand and validate whether startup solutions are really valuable for them to implement long term. What that specifically means, we'll go into detail later. We've been working with many corporations within Europe, but also outside Europe, together to set up venture clienting units. And have been doing that for quite a while. Personally, I'm COO of GlassDollar. I've been working for the company for 4.5 years now, and been in the venture clienting industry for 6 years now. Run over 300 POCs, meaning connected startups to relevant business units and problems within organizations, and build up over 7 venture clienting units myself. Yep. Okay, let's dive into what is venture clienting. Real quick, we're not going to spend too much time on this, but really quickly, venture clienting in a nutshell is really the belief that instead of what the old way was of corporations working together with startups, they always invested in them or bought them outright. Here, the venture clienting theory is really how do we work together or use innovative startup solutions without buying them, right? And the underlying theory here is really that we, rather than buying these startup corporations, we actually buy their products. And because startup solutions are a bit riskier, though, we usually test them before we buy them. And that's basically the entire magic behind venture clienting. It's rapidly identifying, testing, and implementing cutting-edge startup solutions at scale. So we don't just do this for one startup, but for one problem within a corporation, but for many. Good. Now, a bit of the background of why working with startups. I mean, most of you guys that are here are probably not so risk averse when it comes to startups, but quickly, startups over the past years really have become the main source of innovation, meaning they have a lot of resources based on funding or investment funding, and they have the ability to really focus in on one project, right? You can kind of understand that if you think of the startup called Synthesia. That's a text-to-video startup solution where you kind of like type in your text and it creates an AI avatar reading the text. Even you can even create your own and create videos within minutes or a few hours rather than days and weeks. And Synthesia has raised over 100 million euros to just work on this little niche topic, right? Now we have other organizations or business units that have so much time and so much money and resources to really spend on a project like this, that's really non-existent within business units of today's organizations. And that's why we can really say that startups have, really become the main innovator in the system. However, they really, their solutions really start scaling when we connect them to organizations that know how to implement those startup solutions. What we've also done at GlassDollar is we've done this major study impact report of venture clienting. You can kind of see an excerpt of that on the right side. And you can also see that a lot of, at least German corporations, but also European corporations, they really are using venture clienting, but also this working together with startups on scale. Siemens, for example, has done over 450 startups collaborations or has suppliers in the startup, or what we call startups. So they really already understand that working together with startups can help become more innovative in general. I hear nothing, so I'm going to continue. So really summarizing venture clienting in one image, it's understanding that suppliers are on the innovative front, but also understanding that startup suppliers are usually more risky than normal suppliers, because normal suppliers have done this for years. They have contracts with many other larger corporations. They know how to produce a product on scale end. So what we do in venture clienting is really we do these proof of concepts, and we do them really quickly. It's kind of following this lean startup methodology that we'll talk about in a second one more time, but testing whether a solution is really a good fit, very a small frame, to then understand, can we implement that long term? Does it make sense to implement that? Good. Then one other important note that we also always have a discussion with our innovation units in corporations is venture clienting is not trying to be the only innovation method in an organization. We're really just trying to complement whatever else there's going on. So usually when we work together with organizations, they also do incubation and acceleration programs. They also do or acquire new startups if they're really good. But we really what we want to focus on in venture clienting is we want to implement and use the startup technologies, right? And that's the real difference compared to all the other tools. Here on the right side, you can kind of see what their objectives are. Usually, if we're talking about investing into startups, it's really just about getting a financial return of those bets that you're doing. If you're doing hackathons, they're usually more targeted towards employer branding at end. And venture clienting is really, we want to use the innovative products so we can implement them into our systems, our products, and therefore become faster in innovation. Okay, moving on to the next slide. This we've also pitched a bit more, and Denise has already shared the report as well. Venture clienting is really nothing new, right? A lot of companies and corporations have done this or are working together with startups today and have been in history. Venture clienting is really there to kind of systematize what you're already doing, right? So let's say business unit in HR recruiting is working together with startup X, and then there's a production department that also wants to work together with a startup. Usually they all have to figure out their own way to do that. And I think this slide kind of summarizes that really well. What we usually see in organizations is that without venture clienting, when I want to, let's say, work together with a startup, and I am in the production department, I don't really understand how I do that, right? I ask my procurement department, maybe they tell me to write a Lastenheft or a request for proposal, writing down what I really want to test, why I want to work with that startup. It's a lot of work that I have to do next to my job that I'm actually doing. It takes a lot of time, and I really don't understand what the way is, right? Maybe I have a procurement department that's helping me, but it takes forever. It's super, it's not really clear what I have to do. And hence, either I do it and it takes a lot of time, or I don't do it at all because it's just too much. With venture clienting, we really want to enable everyone in an organization to be able to test and then also implement startup solutions. And that's why we work together with the procurement department, with the IT department, with a legal department to really streamline the procurement processes for these startup solution tests, right, for these POCs. So instead of it taking a year or over 10 months, it takes then 6 weeks until you actually can test the solution. And once you tested the solution and it's, it worked well, then you also have all the better reason to talk to procurement and say, hey, we've already tested the solution. We know it works. How do we get it implemented faster? Good. Then we've also teasered this at the beginning a bit, but venture clienting doesn't just work for procurement or for an IT department or for an HR department, but really all across the value chain. And that's also when it becomes interesting. It's fun and cool if you do a POC in one realm, but that's not really venture clienting. Then we've just done a startup collaboration. What we do is we sit together with the innovation units and understand, hey, where across the entire value chain of our organization can we do startup POCs, and how can we help them become faster and more innovative? And that's what we actually do as a venture clienting unit, right? Like we go into all these different departments and do lots of these startup POCs, because some of them will fail. Startup solutions aren't always what they say they are on the internet. But some of them will also be successful, and that's also important to understand. This venture clienting is that, it's a funnel game where you try to do lots of POCs, and in the end, some of them will be implemented, some others will not. Good. Then lastly, not lastly, but almost done with this part of explaining venture clienting. Venture clienting units are innovation units that do venture clienting. And what we really do is we facilitate between business units within an organization trying to understand what their needs are, what their problems are, what they really need at this moment in time. We then try to find startup solutions that match these problems. We put them together. We conduct product demos. We help them analyze them. And then we also help these departments within our parent organizations to test them. Good. Then one other indicator or USP of venture clienting is really because we're so fast, right? Like we were talking not about it takes a year to implement a solution. We're really talking about a few months to test startup solutions and then implement them. We can also measure impact, therefore, very quickly. And these innovative solutions are also turning into real innovative monetary business impact very quickly. So part of this masterclass, that much I can also teaser already, will be helping to put numbers or put monetary impact onto startup collaborations. Good. 2 more slides here. Venture clienting can really be done with almost any type of innovation. So we've done process innovations, these are projects that, let's say in HR recruiting, you're trying to understand, you're trying to do get a better recruiting system, or you're trying to get better sales insights, or these are all projects that help you cut costs or be faster. But we also have product innovations where, we're really working on, let's say, a car chassis or an architecture of a car, or let's say on a fridge, etc. They're all possible with venture clienting. They have a bit of different timelines, but all of them work. And one of the part of the masterclass will also be to understand what's actually a good project in terms of speed, but also in terms of impact. Okay, we've been very abstract now. To kind of break it down into one slide of what you can think of when you think of venture clienting, it's really or I brought you guys one example here. We've had this challenge in a procurement department that currently in most organizations across the globe, when they procure something like, let's say, pencils or so that are under 10K in value, no one is negotiating them because it's just kind of not worth putting someone on there, right? So they just unnegotiated. They're not negotiated. They just buy these pencils, whatever the value is. And there are actually solutions that do that for them. So what we've done is we sourced for startup solutions that can negotiate them. And in this case, it was a negotiation chatbot. And we found a solution called Absolute. That literally just opens up a chat for the pencil manufacturer or supplier, where that chatbot is negotiating with them. And within this POC that took time, like I think we got it. The start of the test was after 6 weeks, and after 10 weeks we already had 20K in savings. So you can kind of see how, like, one example of what venture clienting can really do in an organization. Okay, that kind of summarizes up the part of what is venture clienting. I don't know, do you guys have questions or anything that you'd like to add here?
Madlen, there was already a question from Robert. Any insights or experiences with semi-public companies that have to apply to European tender rules?
What was the semi what?
Semi-public, the semi in brackets.
I don't know what semi-public specifically means. But what we definitely help startups with is preparing for these tenders. And we actually work together with the procurement departments within organizations. So let's say one of our customers is the BSH Startup Kitchen, so Bosch Siemens Home Appliances. And we've worked together with their procurement department to make it easier for startups to apply. I don't know if you've ever tried to go to a supply or to become a supplier of a large organizations. There's a bunch of things you have to do. It's very intransparent. You don't understand where to go. And we help basically both sides, the startups, to navigate through that chaos, but we also work together with the organizations to kind of understand how to make it easier for startups. Specifically, since here we're actually buying and procuring for first the startup test and then the implementation, which is a whole, not new way, but like a side way of procuring. I don't know if that kind of like answered your question, but I think so. Is there another question?
Yes, there was a question. Do you also support the customers with the pilot implementation, like integration of the startup solution into the systems or organizations, for example?
Yes. Yes, we do. That's actually also why we do this, right? Like, it's not that we run a bunch of tests with startups to say we're innovative. What we really want to be is impactful. And hence a lot of like our focus also goes into implementations. Generally, like, there's a bunch of different types you can do. There's, I don't think I have the slide in here, but there's a bunch of different ways of how you can implement startup solutions. But generally, this entire process is so you can implement these solutions faster, right? We're trying to build a case for the solution that we're testing to say, hey, within this, let's say with Absolute, for example, within 2 months, we've already saved 10K, 20K. Well, if you come with that case to procurement, they have like a high incentive to implement that solution long-term, right? So again, we're building relationships with these different departments, whether it's IT, procurement, legal, and end, to then also push these startup solutions that we tested faster through that funnel in the end. Of course, what we also do is help them support or help scale these solutions. I mean, in the negotiation chatbot, it might not make so much sense, but for example, what we've also done is scrap reduction in production, meaning there's a software that kind of understands, hey, we don't need tens of units of this materials. The same thing also works with less. You can scale this from one production to the other production sites. So we do also support with that. Okay. Is there any other question? Good. Then let's focus on what you learn with this masterclass. Maybe a bit of a background of why we're even doing this. At GlassDollar, we really believe that, or you have this North Star that everyone in organizations can test out startup solutions. Yeah. And for that, we want to enable as many people to understand what tools they can use, how the process is, and kind of duplicate what we're doing, and implement them into their own organizations, into other organizations, and that's kind of where this idea of this venture clienting masterclass comes. So here, the main focus of this masterclass is really giving you the tools and the best practices and the tips and tricks of how you get from knowing that there are some problems within your organization, but really identifying these problems, understanding which ones are worth solving, finding good startup solutions, and then doing that POC and implementation in the end. Good. And it's kind of like, the main focus is actually for you to run your own POC. We're going to start with one POC in those 2 days that you're not going to run in actuality, but that you're going to prepare. But it's also set for you, or like it gives you the tools to do many more. And in the end, we're going to have a session also on how you can really implement or ask for budget or implement venture clienting in your organization. And for that, we're going to focus on 3 things. That's on how do you get good leads, that's engagement. How do you do that at speed? That's kind of like focusing on the process. And the third part is how do you calculate and make a business case for this one project, but then using that one project, and hopefully it's successful, to kind of make a case for venture clienting in the organization. Good. This one we're going to jump into a second. Hence, the workshop agenda for this 2-day in-person workshop is that we're going to talk the first or focus in the first day on finding challenges that make sense to be solved. That's lead generation and challenge scoping, and then finding good startup solutions, and then also understanding what is actually best fitting startup solution for this problem. The second part is on the next day will be all about the POCs. So how do you run them? How do you manage them? How do you scope them? What is a good POC? And we're going to finish the masterclass by helping you to prepare a pitch of actually doing that one POC, but then also actually venture clienting you to your board if that's your way. But in the end, you should really be equipped to run POCs yourself, and to also pitch POCs and venture clienting to others. Do you guys have questions on this agenda before I continue? Great. Okay, quickly, the venture clienting process is kind of like these 8 steps. So activation is how do you understand or activate stakeholders, meaning how do you find problems. The second part is about scoping. How do you define good problems once you have a first sketch, so to say. Then we're going to talk about sourcing and scouting. So what databases are you using in the end. The middle part is kind of like running that POC, and in the end, implementation and scaling. Good. Now we're going to deep dive real quick into these different sessions, and just kind of give you a quick overview of what we're going to do there. Exactly. So lead generation here, the end goal is really how do you raise awareness around venture clienting, or around finding problems, and how do you source, so to say, or find the right challenges within your organization. Be quickly to get everybody on the same board of what the lead is in venture clienting. It's really either a pain point owner, so someone that has a specific problem or challenge, or a challenge or a solution. And what we're doing in this first part is matching them all together. Yeah. So here in the first session, what we'll be doing is really you're going to understand what good leads are. How do we find them? How do we approach stakeholders? for these venture clienting projects, because at first you're not going to have someone that magically wants to do a project with you. So how do we, communicate around venture clienting? How do we identify these stakeholders, etc.? And what we're also going to focus a bit on is how do we use recommendations, so to say. So, like, let's say startup teasers to find or to get these leads specifically. Good. Then the second session will be how to define challenges within your organization, company that startups can solve. Here, you're going to learn on best practices about how do we conduct needs assessments. Needs assessments are kind of like the kickoff of a project where you're sitting together with a pain point owner, with a stakeholder, and trying to understand what their problem is. There is a very validated way of doing this that we have and that we'll share, and will also help you break down these challenges, because that's kind of key. You really have to understand in this phase what the problem is, and you might also have to navigate the pain point owner into one or the other direction a bit. And that's really what you learn here is how do you conduct these assessments? How do you break down these challenges? And what's important to understand before we go into a startup scouting. Good. In the third part, startup sourcing, we're going to have a deep dive on how do you find great startups. There's a bunch of databases that you can use here. You can also use the GlassDollar database, so our own database that we curated for this use case. You're also going to understand what are the disadvantages and advantages of different databases, and how do you actually understand whether a startup is A, better than the other, but then B, also really holding on to, can be delivering on the promises that they give maybe on a website, for example. Lastly, we're going to finish this with a sourcing presentation and how you conduct that. So that's basically how do you help their stakeholders sort through all these startup solutions that you found, and give them a recommendation of what you would do. Good. Then we're going to move into the third session, which is startup assessment. Here, we're going to start comparing startups. We're going to actually schedule product demos, meaning, helping the startups to present themselves. How do you do that? How do you prepare them for that? How do you help also the business unit, for example, to ask the right questions? And how can you be a mediator between these two parts, and push the business unit or the pain point owner to test one of these solutions, so to say. Good. In this, the second day now, we're going to start here with proof of concept planning, which is one of the most important things that we do in venture clienting, and that's actually how do you scope POCs that are very short, we like to call it kind of like POCs with minimal effort for maximal learnings, meaning how do you define a proof of concept that's very short, but you can really understand, hey, is this startup solution something that we want to implement long-term or not? And there's a bit of scoping that needs to be done for this. Otherwise, some business units like to do and test solutions for years. We don't want to do that. We want to keep it short and concise. Then we're going to quickly talk about how can we enable organizations to purchase startup solutions very quickly. There's a few tricks and tips that you can negotiate with your procurement department and kind of get this purchasing process set up. This will be a very light version, though. Usually we spend a lot more time on that. Yes, and then lastly, we're gonna in this section also cover how do you negotiate between startups and corporates. Usually, corporates have a lot more power, and that's fine. But we also want startups to, be paid fairly here, because otherwise they're not gonna, commit their best resources to this project, and it's probably not going to be successful. Okay, in the second to last session, we're going to talk about POC management, and most importantly, also about impact. So we're going to help you and give you kind of like our expertise on how do you calculate business impacts for these innovation projects. But we'll also be talking about how do you manage the POC itself as well. Good. Then lastly, and this will be, I think, my favorite session of that masterclass, we're going to talk about what's next, right? As said, in the first days, we'll give you all the tools to kind of, find problems, we source startups and match them. But we really actually want to help you do that operationally as well. So here we're going to talk a lot more about like, how do you set up a venture client team unit as a whole? How do you scale it? How do you successfully pitch venture client to your board to get more budget? And other tips and tricks and best practices.
Yeah, but thank you for joining us. If you have any more questions, feel free, unmute yourself, go ahead and ask anything that you want us to be answered. And now that you have seen what we'll have in the masterclass, we're obviously would love to see you there to register for that. Everything you have to know, you will see on our website, glassdollar.com/masterclass. I also shared the link with you in the chat. And once you have registered, you will also get a masterclass brochure with everything that you need to know about application, about finance options, about the agenda, everything that we will have prepared for you in the masterclass. And obviously, if you have any more questions in the next few days, you're feel free to contact us anytime. I'll also send you our both email addresses into the chat as well. So it's either Madlen or me. I'm Denise. And we'll happy to answer our questions that you now might still have. Thank you, first of all, also Madlen, for the quick overview of what we'll handle in the masterclass. And I think this is a super great opportunity for all of you that want to dive more into innovation journey and want to accelerate the POC process more.
Of course, thank you.
As I said, if you have anything that's on your mind or that is unclear, please feel free to contact us anytime. And otherwise, we'll be happy to see you end of November at the masterclass. And if no more questions are there right now, then we'll wish you a happy rest of the day and hopefully see you soon, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining.